just go forever. So,
I don't want this to take until midnight now.
Fine, Dan, fine. You don't want to spend all this time with us. It's okay.
I have to edit it tonight too.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
Oh, yeah. I got two things to write tonight. Well, last I checked, I had 112 backed up tasks that require letters or complicated emails or sophisticated answers. And today I got done 3. So I started the day with 115. I got it down to 112, and I picked up 1. So I got a long night ahead of me too.
That's where you are. Okay. All right. So
good.
I guess we'll get started.
All right. Good.
So
right.
I'll just kind of intro and we'll get going.
Yeah. Give me. I just hit the
know.
go button on Facebook. Yeah. So. All right.
You good? All right. So tonight we are thrilled to welcome Dr. Kevin Folta back to the Science Enthusiast podcast.
You're supposed to say friend of the show.
Oh, sorry. Friend of the show, Dr. Kevin Folta, back to the Science Enthusiast podcast. So for anyone who's listening and doesn't know, but I mean, everyone who's listening should know who he is. Dr. Folta is a professor and chairman of the Horticultural Sciences Department at the University of Florida, and he's an active science communicator. He's a former punk rocker. I mean, I think, like, I just want to say that if you listen to episode 15 of this show, you can learn a little bit more about that illustrious career of his. And so welcome, Kevin. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
Well, I wouldn't say former.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Oh, I insulted the guest.
Rock out of the punk, or
it's not like you really grow out of that one. I mean,
that's true.
For the most part, it's kind of a built-in attitude that probably drives a lot of the things we'll talk about today.
Ooh,
I can definitely see the attitude cutting through right now too. Like, it's just so edgy. So
he is the punk rock science communicator. Let's call him what he is. So we had a different show planned for this week, but then saw some stuff come out over, I guess, towards the end of last week by Vani Hari, the food babe, who is, just trying to expose, I don't know, a new issue as she does at whatever she does. But then, Kevin, you wrote what I thought was a fantastic post on your blog about everything that had been going on, and reached out to you and just said, like, can we talk about this? And here we are. So for anyone who has not kind of followed the latest Vani Hari debacle on the internet, can you let us know, or let our listeners know, what's been happening with her?
Well, this is an interesting one. So the big problem here, and my relationship with her goes back a long time, probably to 2014. And she came to my university. I was one of very few faculty who showed up. She spent an hour really misinforming our students. And then I took that kind of personally as a professor at that university, and made some comments on a blog the next day that she found problematic. So this relationship I've had with her goes back a long way. What it was this week was she commented on a Snopes article that Snopes had originally reported that there was there's a report on that there's glyphosate, so the active ingredient in the herbicide Roundup, found in certain food products. And they said mixed results, maybe true, maybe false. But when I went to look at the evidence they based that determination on, it turns out it was not a scientific report, or as he called it, a study. It was a flyer by Food Democracy Now! And Food Democracy Now! Is about anything except for democracy, right? It's food dictatorship our way now. and they're anti-biotech, they're anti-genetics, modern production practices. They were the ones who commissioned this. They paid for a lab in California to perform some tests, and allegedly found trace amounts in parts per billion allegedly in a series of food products. And when I analyzed their methods, there were none. When I analyzed their statistics, there were none. The only statistics that they even reported were frequently their numbers were below the level of detection. They didn't talk about replication or any of the things that science uses to really validate an official measurement at the edge of nothing. And so I notified the author of this, Alice Kasparek, and he was good enough to go through the data carefully, analyze all of this, and then kind of change his opinion or change his synthesis in consideration of the evidence, and switched from a kind of a mixed opinion to, no, it's a false claim. Now, this went on the heels of Vani Hari saying on her website on foodbabe.com that, aha, look at this, more evidence of herbicide in your food, what Monsanto doesn't want you to know, right? The old conspiracy. And so it was this combination of a author at a place like Snopes that makes evidence-based decisions, correcting an account based on evidence, that really got her a little bit upset. And of course, then she turns to me as the problem.
Right. So the conspiratorial mindset, she's already in that mindset anyways, but kicks in with anything with glyphosate and anything with science. And I mean, don't we want somebody to correct an error in something that they write? I mean, that's what we would want. But so to her, it's a conspiracy.
But only if it agrees with what she wants it to say.
Exactly. And then that's how this works, is that if it's information that confirms her bias or her storyline, or can sell a product on her webpage, then certainly it's a valid report. If it's somebody who is who works for the state, who is an independent scientist who corrects that claim, then obviously they must be part of the system and paid off by Monsanto, right? And that's the claim that she makes. And so we can talk about that if you like, but the major thing is basically, she doesn't come to the table saying, let's talk about those analyses and let's talk about the standards in GCMS. And let's talk about, the gas chromatography protocols they used and how they derivatized. It's not about the actual analysis and things I'm familiar with very well. She doesn't want to talk about the science because she can't approach the science. So what she does is she goes after the scientist and takes anyone who is a critic who levies scientifically based claims and automatically tries to disqualify them.
Well, and something that I think you kind of wrote about in your blog post too is that, you're a public scientist, you're working for the public, and there's an element of trust with scientists and the public. And people like Vani Hari and what she's doing, she's trying to erode that trust. And I mean, that seems problematic to me. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. No, this is the huge problem that we have had as scientists, especially public scientists and farmers, that we are not, even though we deserve the public's trust, we really earn it by working for the public, by doing our research on public dollars funded by the public, and doing objective research and publishing it in peer-reviewed journals with transparency, that we really should have the public's trust. However, we don't necessarily have that. And that becomes because of a long history where a few scientists have not done the right thing, and in very visible places have been exposed of bending data or changing data in ways that corrupt it and make it untrustworthy. Then on top of that, scientists are not stepping into these conversations in ways that really resonate with the public. We're speaking at the public. We're beating them to death with stats and figures. We're showing them figures in the scholarly journal. Hey, look right here. We're not taking the time to share science and really talk about the wondrous, cool things about science that would earn us that trust. And that's been a mantra of mine over the last really 5 or 10 years, and is really reason I've been targeted so hard by the anti-GMO groups, is because we are making a difference in changing the trust of the public. They're starting to finally realize that the scientists who are doing the work on their dime for them are the ones they should listen to, not for-profit websites driven by internet celebrities. So now she needs to take away that trust. That's the mission right now.
And shift it to her. Somebody who, like you said, can't even begin to enter the conversation to even talk about these things in the first place.
No, that's exactly it. It's She can wrap herself in a halo and say, well, I'm just out here for the public good. I just want safe and healthy food, and I believe that was at her core at one time. And I do believe her and her honesty when she says that that's what her motivation was. And that's my motivation too, by the way. I'm really concerned about the environment and concerned about people's health, health in the industrialized world and in the developing world, and farming sustainably. That's like the core of what I do all day, every day, is talk about these issues and work in research as a department chair and researcher for these issues. I walk the walk. Her whole thing it really changed, and then it wasn't just about advice and guidance. It became into this very aggressive activist movement of defamation against companies that she felt were putting additives in food that she felt were inappropriate. The azodicarbonamide in the Subway bread comes to mind. Mm-hmm. Safe food colorings in other places. But what she really got upset about is when science. She's really been much more aggressive in a very uncharacteristic and kind of a weird, suspicious way. She's been really aggressive with folks like me who simply are trying to communicate science. And the same thing has happened, coincidentally, with her decline in relevance and her hits and traffic. So I think it speaks very clearly to this strategy as not being a good one to take on.
Yeah, and I think, again, in your post, you wrote about like her failures are essentially due to science and science communicators being more successful and being better now at speaking out and communicating. And so it has to be really frustrating for her to have lost some of that ground, in a sense, like with the fear tactics and everything. But I'm just like, it's just like she popped back up with what happened like this past week. And so what are your thoughts on what's going on with her?
It's really weird because last year, back in April and May, maybe even earlier than that, I started receiving Freedom of Information Act requests from her. And so the university, as a public scientist, my emails may be obtained by anyone who's interested to see what kind of fun I'm having and, reading my boring, hundreds of emails that I need to deal with every day. She requested them and has received something like 30,000 pages of my email. And she was very public about this. Clearly, it's because Monsanto is behind pulling his strings and telling him to go after me. And she had this big thing on her website last year. And when you read through it, she's quoting me of saying things like, and I don't have it in front of me, but she would like say, and then he said, Vonnie doesn't have any training in formal food science, and she's speaking like an expert when she shouldn't. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's right.
That's extremely accurate.
Yeah.
Not alternative fact. That's a real fact.
So I'm reading all of these things all these quotes that she pulled of me, and I'm shaking my head. Yep. And then she gets, and so she said, that's why I'm FOIA-ing him to obtain all of his emails. And so she got all my emails, probably 30,000 or so. Each one has to be read by an attorney because attorneys have to redact student information and like confidential information with regards to inventorship and proprietary information, none of which I really have in there. But yet she, since an attorney has to look at every page, you can imagine how many tens of thousands of dollars it costs the taxpayer to go on a search for someone who has no allegations of doing anything incorrectly. I mean, when they went through my emails before the whole big blow up in New York Times last year, they went through this gigantic, what they called an expose and scandal, yet never showed that I did anything wrong or never did anything inappropriate. I mean, what they showed was that I'm a scientist who interacts with companies now and then, which is my job. So she got all my emails and proceeded to play with those in this most recent dust up, which was kind of boring, but at the same time, really horrific.
So, like, what is it with her, with you, that she just needs to continue to essentially first like waste money on trying to dig for something that doesn't exist, but just bringing you like, why does she care? Or does she really care? Is this just
reminded of the Mean Girls? Why are you so infatuated with me?
Well, I don't know that it's and this is why I'm really curious, is it goes back to that Freedom of Information Act request. She gave a form that was identical in content and in format to the one that came from USRTK, which is the activist organization that's paid by the Organic Consumers Association, the Bonner Soap, all these other organizations, corporations that pay them to harass scientists. And under the guise of, we're just trying to make sure everything's okay. They took my emails and created a story that was false and defamatory, and it's caused me tremendous career harm. And in some circumstances, certainly. She said me too. And so she decided to take all my emails, and now she's in the process, after going through 30,000 of them, realizing there's nothing there to report. So she basically followed the lead of the previous smear campaign and basically cut and pasted. I mean, she did exactly what they did. And it's just as boring and just as sad.
Yeah, and like you just said, whenever I read through your blog this week, it's literally like they're bringing up the $25,000 from Monsanto that never actually got sent through, and talking about all these things. And like you said, it's the same talking points, but now we're trying to put a different spin on it. And there's, like you said, there's nothing there, and she's not doing this from a place of genuinely trying to learn or trying to, like you said, protect people. It's more of it's about her. It's about her image and her brand and making her look good, and at the expense of trying to make you look bad.
Well, and at the expense of science and the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I correct the record to say, let's look carefully at the techniques used, the standards used, the way in which they're using this technique to identify trace compounds. How do you do that? And it's really a specific technique, and it's very, very precise, very, very difficult. The people who are good at this, it's much more of an art than a science. And I don't know, I'm not an expert in this area, but I know how it's done because I interact with those folks. It takes a career to be an expert in that area, and I understand it very well. They have no clue, and I pointed that out. And even the company that did it, they had some weirdnesses about it too. And they say, oh, it's not our responsibility to divulge Food Democracy Now's data or our information. So there's no backup on that information. But going back to the point, here I corrected the scientific record. And so her thing now is we need to discredit the person who is speaking about science. Since we can't address the science, create the ad hominem. And, just the best one, my favorite email in that group was, we can maybe talk about that in a minute, but her whole thing is, any way you can, this is what they did before, any way that you can connect a scientist to Monsanto, even if it's an email from someone they never met, someone from Monsanto who said, hey, dude, nice job. Thanks for talking about this on the podcast. They will take that and say, aha, here's evidence of deep collusion.
Well, and what I don't understand is, so they use Monsanto, which yes is a corporation, whatever, but the organic industry is an industry in itself, and like U.S. Right to Know and all of this, they're doing work on behalf of what is essentially an industry. So that's okay, right? Because it's like natural and they're saving the world or something, one organic food at a time, like. That just doesn't add up to me. But they've cultivated this more wholesome, I guess, reputation for themselves, and then they've created the monster.
Well, because as we all know, Whole Foods is just giving away food for free. They're not in it to try to make money. I go in there and they just shopping carts full. Just that's it. But so how did that happen? I mean, that they're good and they're doing a service. Food Babes doing a service.
Well, it ties back in with what we started talking about in the beginning, is that when scientists and farmers and physicians and even science nerds failed to step into the discussion, it left this vacuum void for charlatans like Mercola and that avocado guy and Bhavani to step in and grab that market share and sell products around a basis of fear. And selling, BS remedies, selling false claims. And so when scientists finally do get our heads on straight, we step into this connection, into this discussion, trying to connect with the public and tell them about evidence-based decision-making, about science. It shatters their brand and it takes away from their revenue stream. They're the ones who are working for money by spreading false information. Scientists are working for the public to try to correct that false information. And that puts us squarely in the target. And then when they have access to our emails and can cut and paste stories out of them, that leads us in a very vulnerable position.
Well, and like you even said, she didn't even do it like sequentially in order. She used an email from, however long before, and then puts it after. Again, this is all things that have been previously released. Puts it after, where you said, I'd be glad to write, whatever you want, then puts something out of order to make it look like something that it's not. And why all the deception if you're telling the truth? Like, why do you have to bullshit us here?
Well, that one's the most hilarious one, and it really hurts. People have glued those lines on pictures of my face and stuck it all over YouTube, all over the internet. And it's really harmful to somebody who works for the public and who's trying to earn the trust and who shows up at the schools, who shows up and judges the science fairs. Not all faculty do this at major universities. And I spend ridiculous amount of time doing outreach and doing things to do this. A lot of that has ended since this, by the way, not since Vonnie, but since that first thing. But the thing is, I got an email from a woman who works at Monsanto. Now, all of us in plant biology, no matter what, if you've been in plant biology for 30 years, you've had classmates, friends, associates, whatever, they end up working at companies. Somebody does, right? And so we all know people who work at Dow, Bayer, Monsanto, BASF. We all know those folks. Little bits here and there. Even if we have no research agreements, we know people. We're acquainted with people. And a friend of mine reaches out and says, look at this horrible ad they're running on television in our community. And it was a guy an anti-GMO guy who we all know, who has a rubber glove on one hand with blue corn kernels, which are corn kernels out of the bag treated with a fungicide, and they're blue so that farmers know they're treated. And then the other one, he just has corn kernels. And he says, which one would you rather feed your family? The one with Agent Orange in it? Now, I mean, it was such a blazing distortion and such a lie, because those weren't what you would feed to your family. They're what you would plant in the ground. They were covered with seed protection that would protect the plant. You don't need a rubber glove to hold them. It's not Agent Orange. He lied. And this is shocked the people who saw that commercial. So my friend who works for Monsanto was communicating with other people and said, could you please, can we organize scientists to either write an op-ed or sign a petition? Because this is unfair to do this and scare people like this. And my email response to that was, sure, I'll be happy to write whatever you like or sign on to whatever you like. And then if you read the rest of that email, it kind of even says, Ray and his seeds, but she highlights that line, a yellow highlight, and then highlights Monsanto in the name of the person who sent it. The idea was to create this idea that I was somehow their complicit little spokesperson who was going to just do whatever they wanted, which is the biggest BS you will ever hear, because I don't work for them. I've never worked for them. And I don't even care if they're around or not. My mission is no different. But
because I think most people might not even know, like, you don't even work with corn or anything, that your research is involving strawberries. So
Yeah.
Can you tell me, and Natalie and I talked about this before, don't laugh, this is serious.
Okay, sorry.
How much is Big Strawberry paying you to be here tonight?
Well, I in full disclosure, and you can find this on my website. If you go to kevinfolta.com/transparency, you can find every single grant I ever received and every single reimbursement since 2013. That you can find out who paid for the coffee, who paid for the cab, and what you find out is that I do something for the public once every 3 days. Even though and this is aside from my full-time job, full-time jobs, as a researcher and department chair, I do something on average every 3 days. And you see, I basically get paid zero to do it.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what I would expect a shill for Big Strawberry to say. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, back to Big Strawberry. I do get money from the Florida Strawberry Research and Education Fund, which means that our strawberry industry, they're really excited about ways to cut inputs, meaning cut fertilizer and insecticide. They want to know how to have more berries earlier. They want to know, how do we grow them organically better? Our industry pays a lot of money to researchers to help develop better resources for an industry that's under tremendous challenge right now from floods of cheap berries coming in over the border. So our industry is very willing to fund research, and it should. And I'm very grateful for their support.
Yeah. And yet still with all of that, I mean, you're doing work that is beneficial for, I mean, for our food supply, really, is what a lot of this biotech research and development is doing, yet it's demonized by people, Hari and her brand, or whatever, or the other people who have organizations around these issues, and it's all based in just misinformation and myths. And I mean, what do you think's going on with her and her, just her general brand, and where this is going? Like, what comes next from somebody like her?
Well, it's a really interesting thing, and I don't mean to get conspiratorial. I don't mean to fight a conspiracy with a conspiracy, but I've seen a lot of weird things happen with her. She started out as kind of this humble, let me help you find a way from, here's my experience, here's what I know, here's what I've been through, and here's how we can go together to, eat healthier and make better decisions. And that kind of morphed into this weird activism vein of, let's take on big food, let's take, ingredients we don't understand out of food, let's, and then all of the rather inflammatory rallying of folks around using the internet to really coerce and bully companies into doing what she says, or else you would get, fried on the internet. You would scare the hell out of parents because you have some ingredient that she doesn't understand. And it was working. I mean, you could scare people into taking action. We know that. It's kind of a low-level terrorism, and I even called her a food terrorist for a while. But now she kind of switched, and somewhere in, like, when she first started going after me, her tone changed. And she didn't sound like Vani Hari anymore. She sounded like the Organic Consumers Association, and like GM Watch. It sounded like those folks who are really aggressive, are mean before they are thinking, and are just defamatory and libelous. They don't care about the truth. It started to sound more like them. And I don't know if she sold the brand to them and said, here, you guys go for it, and then, retired. I don't know. Or if they have really co-opted her into that mindset. She shows up on Alex Jones before she shows up on any mainstream media. So I'm really thinking that there's something going on with, she's either making more money by dealing in the conspiratorial vein now that her interest and impact have fallen away, or something. But she's not the mainstream Vani that used to be.
Has she been on Alex Jones?
Yeah, she's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, she has
Okay.
been. So,
Okay.
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah,
I did not know that. That's new to me.
Yeah,
she has been on Alex Jones. Yeah.
She was on Alex Jones and on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie.
I used to listen to that show when I was 12 in like the middle of the night, and I thought it was great. I never once thought it was like true. I thought it was fiction. I thought that was the goal. And not until I was like in my 20s, somebody was talking about it. I was like, wait, no, that was like people, like, they were being serious. Like, that's like a real thing. Like, come on.
But that's what makes me laugh so hard. When you have people like Vani and Jeff Smith, Jeffrey Smith, when you have her and Jeffrey Smith on right after, like George Norrie will say, right after this update on Bigfoot, we'll talk about the crash at Roswell. Then up next, Vani Hari and poison in your food. So I'm going, okay, yeah, this is kind of going full circle.
Yeah, no, she's right. She's right in there. But no, when I saw that she was on Alex Jones, it's like, oh man.
Oh well, I got my plans set for the rest of
you know what you're doing.
To see what
you're
crazy shit comes up here.
Yeah. So then, Kevin, my question too is, like, obviously, she's been really, involved with wanting to know your business and all that kind of stuff. Like, have you guys ever had communication, or like, has she ever tried to just reach out to you like a normal human instead of being like, I'm going to FOIA this guy's like, you know, thousands of pages of emails? Like,
no, she's never personally reached out to me, but I've written her twice, and to the email address that comes with the FOIA material. And I've always, and I've even written on my blog, you can go back and read this before, is that here was somebody who kind of with very minimal background in an area became a superstar, who became a sensational personality in the internet space. And can you imagine the power of that if it was used to really share quality information about improving our eating habits as a nation, about how to, you know, help kids make healthier food choices, how to think about farming's real risks and real benefits and make good decisions around keeping the environment safe. She could have, and I told her this, I said, you know, Vani, you obviously have a gift of persuasion. You have a gift of talking to people. I never thought she was super bright. You know, you get that in interviews, but she could connect with people, and that's a skill few people have. And plus, she had a huge audience. And if you were to use that audience, if she were to say, okay, I'm sorry, I really made a mistake, that I really want to follow the science because the scientists are on the same, want the same thing I do, safe and healthy food. And I'm going to work with people like Folta or whoever, it doesn't even have to be me, work with scientists, and we're going to fact check my work. And I'm going to work extra hard to put great information out there for people to understand. Her stock would go through the roof. And I told her that. I said, you know, this is your chance to kind of really reinvent yourself. And I was very kind about it. I have no, I mean, I wish her well. And I really hope that someday she apologizes, and I hope someday she would contact me and turn it around.
Yeah. Cause I mean, honestly, like because I think I personally, like, I would embrace a change of heart from her or any person like that who says, I've re-examined my views on something. Like, I've changed my worldview. Like, I am interested in what's evidence-based and true. And it's unfortunate though, when somebody is so able to persuade people to then just use it in that way instead of, you know, for good. And yeah.
But that's the point. In that people love it when someone says I'm wrong and I made a mistake and come out. Look at Mark Linus. I mean, a guy who was the biggest anti-GMO guy out there, who, when he made the mistake and he came up in Oxford and said, I've really made a horrible mistake and I'm sorry for what I've done, his presence now is much more credible, and he's very well sought after, and has an incredible voice for science.
Yeah, so it's like, it's possible, you know, but yeah, with her, I don't necessarily have a strong amount of hope, but at least we can see that it is possible. But now I think another important aspect to all of this is the idea of like standing up for science, right? I mean, that's in the atmosphere right now, and like being vocal and being out there with like making evidence a priority and critical thinking and all that good stuff. So what are your thoughts about where this, like, where do we go as far as being evidence-based and advocating for science in our current climate?
Well, I think it's more important. I think it's very important for scientists to, as I wrote in an article on Huffington Post, express their rage wisely, and that marches are nice. You know, you can go march with a sign and be counted and, you know, have a weekend in Washington. Great. Good on you. But what I think this will change this is a sustained effort by science, by a scientific community, and by science enthusiasts who don't just take a day in April to go march with a sign, but who volunteer at their schools, who raise money to buy that microscope and show the kids how to use it, to volunteer to work at science fairs, to encourage wider participation in scientific dialogue, to write the blogs. I think it would be so exciting to have science enthusiasts, everybody who's out there who has a voice and an opinion and an idea based on evidence, to put that information out there. guys like me, I go on Twitter and I love reading other people's work, but I don't always have time to write it. And if I can share your work, that's a huge thing for me. And so it's a question of having more people as part of the conversation from the evidence-based side.
Yeah. So as many people speaking out as possible and sharing information and credible information, right?
Yes. And especially in response to things that happen in science, whether it's climate and things that are happening with Michael Mann, whether it's a situation like what happened to me the other night. When the New York Times thing hit a year and a half ago, you could hear a pin drop, except for a few folks like Alison Van Eenenum, Stephen Novella, David Gorski. There was a lot of folks who stood up in science and got really ticked off. But our national organizations didn't want to get involved. Science journalists didn't want to get involved unless they could jump on the smear too. David Kroll wrote a beautiful piece that said, here's what they missed, here's the facts. So the trick is they're monitoring the scientific discourse, especially the work that maligns science and scientists and scientific pursuits. And we need to be out there vocally correcting these things and providing the information for people who just don't know who to trust.
Yeah. I think that's an important message for like anybody to hear. And obviously it's like, this is why we wanted to have you come and talk to us, because it's like any time or any platform that on which these stories can be shared is important. So, I value that we have the ability to help tell some of these stories.
Well, and that's why I'm so grateful that you guys would have me on so soon. I mean, I think that just the other night, seeing those emails and that same tired defamation show up again it's so sad, because somebody will read that in my community. And somebody will say, isn't this the guy who comes to our schools? He can't come to our schools. We don't want Monsanto indoctrinating him, indoctrinating our children. And then the school doesn't ask me to come anymore. And it already happened that way. And I used to go all the time. And now it's pretty rare. It's when specific teachers ask me to come. And but this is the danger of having that kind of blatantly false information out there. It's horrible what happened. And for every one person who reads my rebuttal, there are 1,000 eyes reading her blog, because she still has a little bit of gravitas in that circle.
Yeah. Well, so hey everybody, share this podcast and share Kevin's blog posts about it. I mean, because that's what it is it's as many people as can share this information as possible. Because people like her and people like, all of the organic, industry people, they have big followings. They have all of that money and all the people behind them. And for us, it's a little bit more like grassroots type of, getting the information out there. So, yeah.
Well, we're in our basement.
I'm in my basement,
Well, the other important point too is, we do have to be a little careful when we talk about organic and what happens there, because, I work with a lot of the best organic researchers in the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited that people are studying ways to farm with less, or especially in places where people have no resources, such as synthetic chemicals, ways that you can still farm productively. And I adore that people do that. And I'm glad they do it. And I'm glad farmers make money doing it. The problem is when you turn that practice, which is a very good ecological practice that I adore, into a money-making center that you construct a halo around. So in other words,
that's what it is. Yeah.
Our thing is superior because we put the O word on it. And really, it's identical and same thing. We put the O word on it, and the other stuff is poison, and you will die if you eat it, and your kids will grow an arm and another arm. And
statistically, though, everybody will die.
Yes.
They're not wrong.
Well, there's still a significant population that has not yet provided data for that conclusion, myself included. But it is important for us to keep it real with that too, because I think it's great that farmers who want to farm any way they want to farm, using any production means they want to do, if it makes them money to certify their farm and have certified products and allows them to stay profitable, that's a priority for me. And I adore those folks, and I work for those folks. And so it's a sad byproduct of this discussion, that when you have someone like Vonnie or anybody, Organic Consumers Association is the worst, who are exploiting that halo to create a market or to tarnish the reputations of scientists. It almost makes organic look sleazy. And it makes the whole, since they wrap themselves in that veil, it makes them all look guilty and it makes them all look complicit. And I think that's really unfortunate, because there's a lot of people out there in the organic industry who don't agree with this treatment of scientists.
Awesome. Well, Dan, do you have anything else? I mean, I think Kevin, like, I know you have a million things or 100 and something things on your to-do list for tonight. But I'm really glad that we were one of your things on your to-do list tonight to talk about this. And yeah, and actually, I guess if people want to follow you on the internet, like, where can they find you? Because I want them to follow you.
The best place is to follow me on Twitter at Kevin Folta, at KevinFolta. And you can Google my name, and every other thing is kind of positive. and actually, I've got the best place to follow me is just on Twitter. And then the blog is called Illumination. And if you're interested in the research, and you go to kevinfolta.com, you can read a lot about what I do, why I do it, and the people who've been through my lab. Wonderful family who are doing beautiful things in their own labs now. So very proud of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We'll have links to everything, regarding Kevin in our show notes. And yeah, thank you for coming back and talking to us again. We really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. All right. So Dan needs to make sure all of this gets caught. Thank you. This was fantastic.
Oh, good. No, it was nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of Zencaster there.
Yeah, and my internet cut out there, so like the feed to Facebook died for a minute, and then I'm not really sure how that's going to play out, but we've not had that happen with since we've been doing the Google Hangout here, so we'll have to see how that goes. And the Zencaster is still having problems.
Did you record on Google Hangouts and on Zencaster?
Yeah, it's recording both. Yeah. So we got it. Yeah, we got redundancy. That actually saved us last week too.
Good deal.
Having that redundancy. But
all right.